Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition, the sixth edition, actually, of the ACSIS Exchange Webinar Series, a timely and urgent dialogue exploring the global relevance of African and Caribbean leadership in today's shifting geopolitical landscape. As the world contends with the resurgence of Trump-era policies, including renewed threats of immigration bans threatening African and Caribbean nations, and escalating climate change pressures, the ACSIS platform offers critical insights into how our regions can shape resilient, sustainable futures. This health and life sciences session brings together global thinkers, life coaches, investors, and policymakers to examine how systemic inequalities amplified by global health crises, exclusionary policies, and restricted mobility impact access to innovation, medicine, and opportunity. At the intersection of trade, climate, and equity, we ask, how can Africa and the Caribbean act boldly and collaboratively to protect lives, build capacity, and ensure sovereignty over their health and development agendas? The world is watching. Be part of the conversation. I'm David F. Roberts. I'm the founder of the African Caribbean Sustainability and Investment Summit. I am an entrepreneur, publisher known for the caribdirect.com blog and also the Caribbean Food and Drink Conference and the Just Caribbean Festival done in 2018. I am accompanied by my deputy chair, who is Dr. Michelle Moseley. She's a consultant, coach, and educator, versatile financial consultant, educator, life coach professional. Expertise in advanced consultation strategies, investment advice, and retirement planning on all aspects of life coaching. Our producer, Madison Tavares, is not with us today, but nonetheless, she's dedicated to amplifying authentic Caribbean stories. Her storytelling expertise will help elevate ACSIS's global impact and foster greater inclusion in its narratives. Now, today we have a special guest. Apart from Dr. Michelle Moseley, who I will introduce shortly, we have Dr. Michaelene Holder-March. She's a distinguished healthcare executive, visionary leader, and the sole founder and CEO of a pioneering organization driving excellence in health sciences and services and leadership development. Now, I will just take a second to introduce someone who is very important to our team. And that is the person I mentioned briefly just now, and that is Dr. Michelle Moseley. Let me just get you her wonderful profile. So as I mentioned, Michelle is a financial consultant, educator, and coach. So Michelle, as we wait for Dr. Michael, could you just give us a sense of how do you see this whole health and life sciences moving forward within the African Caribbean space?
Absolutely. It could be a good time for me to just go through my presentation. Would you like me to do that?
If you don't mind, certainly.
Yeah, no, that's quite all right. We can move with that because it's all encompassing, if you will. So if you don't mind, if we can just start with that, and then when Dr. Michaelene joins us, we can pivot to her presentation.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Perfect. I don't know if you were able to throw it up on the screen there for me.
Certainly. Let me share that because at the moment it's actually up, but I think I need to share the screen with you.
That's right.
So let me see.
And for those that are there listening, bear with us. We do have some good information to share with you, and we're hoping that you're going to have, a conversation, at least have some robust conversation happening around the topic, because I think it's so important and very timely. And I know that for our main presenter today is going to look at it more from a very much that clinical side, if you will. I'm looking at it from the emotional well-being side. And when I put this together, the Stronger Together reminded me of during the pandemic, and that was very much the tagline of being stronger together. And it's really quite an important statement. It's a powerful statement, and it is a statement that remains true within the African and the Caribbean region as we try to work together, because as we do that, we're empowering ourselves and, of course, the generations to come. So there is an element, there is a role, if you will, of emotional well-being in the African and Caribbean space as we strive to work together in unity. And what does that really mean? And what is that role? So I like to consider it a shared legacy. If you can just move for the next slide, please. So I consider it a shared legacy where it is that for both of us, both regions, Africa and the Caribbean, we carry that historical burden, if you will, of colonization, enslavement, displacement, loss of our history, etc., etc. We have shared wounds. We have shared healing to do as a result. And so even today, what is happening, those wounds have carried forward into how we operate. And whether or not we recognize it, it has actually created that space where we are separated in the way we think. And I will tell you what, very, very quite important, without us acknowledging those emotional scars, without us dealing with it, well, we risk building, the partnership that we're really working hard right now to build. We risk building that on really fragile ground. And what happens when you build something on a fragile ground? Quite likely, it collapses very quickly under the pressure. So it is, of course, on that premise that we're looking at emotional well-being as a foundation for growth within the two regions. If we're able to talk to each other, if we're able to understand, more importantly, how culturally we are different, but yet should be able to work together, I think that is going to be critical to the conversation. So emotional health, it affects everything. In my industry, in the financial services, we like to say that health is wealth, and it's absolutely 100%. Without our health, how could we work, etc., to make money to grow that wealth? In similar context, emotional health, it affects everything from productivity, creativity, and our resilience. Everything that is needed for these two regions to function and to really come out stronger together. So for the African and the Caribbean collaboration, what we have to begin to do is to prioritize and have conversation, really serious conversation around mental wellness, because we want to make sure that we have stronger leaders. We want to make sure that we have healthier communities. We want to make sure that we have sustainable partnerships. And the only way to really have that is to first lay the foundation. And that foundation is our emotional well-being. Everything else follows that. All of our conversations about investment, all of our conversation about creating a green space and a sustainable earth, I submit to you, lays on that foundation of emotional wellness, connecting at that level so that we're building something that is sustainable over time and would not crumble at the first sign of mental decay. So, next slide, please. What are we going to do? We want to break the barriers. We want to break the barriers of division. I was saying to someone, we all look alike in the African and Caribbean space, and I'm talking particularly in this regard to Black people. We look alike, but we have some, differences in terms of culture, in terms of how mannerisms, spoken word, etc. And so we have to start at a level where we begin to understand all of that before we decide that we could have this great relationship. So we've got things like unhealed trauma and it comes up as distrust. I have seen that so often in dealing with other parties, and even though we look alike, there is that instant distrust, and that is unhealed trauma. And what happens when we start with that distrust, we end up in a competitive environment, that one that could be very fragmented, because now we have to begin to dial it back a bit and start to look for how we can work together with trust. So that's number one, we have unhealed trauma that must be addressed. We have to address emotional well-being because it allows us to replace fear with trust. If we deal with that emotional component, we can deal with that fear. And now we're not starting from a place of mistrust. We're not starting from a place of isolation with unity. What we're starting with is, like I said, a stronger foundation. And I think that's really what is going to be necessary as we move forward, especially in this day and age, of changes within policies, etc. That is really forcing us to take a closer look at how we conduct relationships. I don't want to say business just yet, but how we conduct relationships within the regions. So unity is not just political. In fact, unity is more personal than it is political. And when we start with unity, we end up fostering great relationships that literally could have us coming to the table with conversations that will impact generations to come. So, the usual thing, we want to make sure we have some call to action within these two regions. And on a serious note, what it is that we want everyone to understand. We want you to understand that we have to begin across the African and Caribbean regions to embed wellness programs into regional collaboration. When we have functions, when we have webinars, when we have seminars, when we have conferences, we must dedicate time to build our emotional resilience. That's what's going to keep us going. We can have layers and layers of conversation around, blue planet and green planet and renewable energy and sustainable investment. And we can do all of that. And it will be very intelligent conversation with very good song bites that does not last because we have not taken the time to deal with our unhealed trauma. So that's the reason why we have to embed, wellness programs into all of our conversation until it becomes so natural that we are operating from a position of strength and resilience. Number two, we want to create spaces for dialogue, for healing, and for cultural exchange. And, this is a conversation that I keep having with people. This actually came up in terms of the cultural exchange. And someone said, oh, it's not that, I don't think that culture, conversation is necessary. Things like, for example, the ACSIS summit that we typically have, our flagship event. Yes, it is. For across the African and Caribbean regions, we actually that's part of our conversation. That's the way we actually have dialogue. We beat our drums. We have those conversations that way, and that's very cultural and very much part of how we communicate. And we need to create space for that. We need to create space for healing, and we need to create space for dialogue that talks about our uncertainty as to how to communicate, for example, with our African counterparts, or vice versa, the Africans, having conversation and dialogue with the Caribbean counterparts. And then number 3, we need to recognize that prosperity without emotional well-being is incomplete, because it really is. And if it's incomplete, it will unravel. I can guarantee it. It may not unravel at a frenetic pace, but it will be so insidious that at some point we realize that the rot has crept to the top. And what we have is a very unfortunate, very, very dismantled relationship that we're passing on to generations to come. And we're the ones that are responsible right now. We are the ones that are in this space. We are the ones that have been provided the opportunity. In my opinion, it's opportunity that we've been provided with all of these policy changes, etc. We have been provided an opportunity to explore deeper relationships. And we'll see that coming out across the regions. I can see pockets of organizations, just chomping at the bit to get into the conversation and space, and I applaud that. And access, this is what we're about. We are about having those conversations, putting people in the room together so that we can have those conversations and we can begin to talk from a place of healing so that we can build those strong foundations. So I want to end there, because I'll leave you with those thoughts. Staying connected and creating space and recognizing that we can have all the conversations in the world. However, how do we have it be sustainable? And that starts with emotional wellness. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Michelle Moseley. We can always depend on you to give us these enlightening and encouraging bits of information about how we can keep things together. And of course, the bit about ACSIS and what we do is always useful. So I am pleased to introduce our focused speaker today, which is Dr. Michaelene Holder-March. She, as I mentioned earlier, is a distinguished healthcare executive, visionary leader, and the sole founder and CEO of a pioneering organization driving excellence in health services and leadership development. Welcome, Dr. Michaelene, right? Michaelene, is that pronounced correctly? Your audio, you're muted. You're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
I think you have that correctly now. Yeah.
Yes.
It's Michaelene. Hi, everyone.
Michaelene, right, Michaelene.
I want to apologize to everyone. I've moved from BT to somebody else, and it's just not effective. But that's neither here nor there. That's some of the challenges that one face as we come across. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I want to say, listening to the previous speaker, I was really, really impressed by that, and absolutely. Do you want me to start, or are you going to ask me how you would like me to start?
Just go straight ahead. The floor is yours, Michaelene.
I think it's really key. We're going to have it as a discussion for us to talk. When I looked at it, I wanted to talk about it in the context of how that impacts health and life sciences, how it impacts on the African and Caribbean community.
Absolutely, yes.
And I also want to touch about bridging that legacy of disparity and how we could actually be innovative in the future to actually address some of this.
Sure.
So I think before we move on to any other, I want to talk about some of the fundamental challenges that we face across the region, from a historical context to structural inequity. And there is so many gaps that's in our genomic research. Example, if you look at sickle cell, sickle cell has been going on for how long, And is only recently lovely in Milton Keynes. We now have a center where people could actually go to. But we know for a fact that for many years that people have actually turned up to all different hospitals, not only in the UK, but all in Europe and in the USA, and they couldn't actually identify or give them the appropriate treatment that is necessary for that. Not only that, the stigmatization around HIV, coming in with something like malaria, and it is deemed to be possibly to be HIV. So there's a lot of biases in regards to that. And it's about how do we as a people, how do we actually address some of these key issues? My background is in the NHS. And we have our challenges, no doubt about it. And some of the challenges are ongoing today. But I just want to take a note here that is really important, is that when we look at some of the chronic illnesses that face us and our region, hypertension and stroke, we know that it's up to 4 times we are higher risk in Black populations compared to white. In regards to type 2 diabetes, we know our incidence rate and the complications, including amputations and kidney failure, 4 times more than our counterparts. I talk about sickle cell not only affecting us, but the Middle Eastern people. And then we touch on maternal health. As a midwife, I can tell you, maternal health, we know that women are more than likely, 3 to 4 times are likely to die in childbirth than our white counterparts in countries like the UK and the US. And that's a combination of socioeconomic factors as well as racial biases. We no doubt about that. How about if we touch on mental health? Yeah, mental health, the highest rate of diagnosis for severe mental illness, like psychosis, schizophrenia. It's always in regards to us accessing talking therapies, is linked to social deprivation, cultural stigma, and also racism. So where do we go from here? We know for a fact that there's poor data out there about our genetic risk. I'm quite happy to have a debate about that. The genetic variance that is linked to the various diseases that affect the African and Caribbean population. I'm talking about the Afro-Caribbean and the African population. And the prediction of diseases are quite inaccurate compared to our European groups. What about pharmaceutical products that are made? Drugs are developed and dosed based on a one-size-fits-all. That's a model that often doesn't work for us. Patients, for example, classic is hypertensive drugs. And some of them are less effective for Black populations. As well as there's another turn to that. You know, I did a research asking a couple of Black patients, do you ever look up who produce your hypertensive drugs? Do you know where it's produced? Have you ever looked and see if the MHRA or if the FDA in America has ever banned that company? And you're taking that product? Do you know you have rights that you could say to your pharmacist, excuse me, I don't want that product because that product has had so many lawsuits in regards to hygiene, health, and safety issues? Because we don't go that far. We trust our health personnel to give us the best that they can. Health inequalities is real. And the only how that we can actually address that is to look at advancement, progress, empowerment, innovation, and what you're doing here, Roberts, which is sharing knowledge.
Absolutely.
It's the only way forward. So one thing I would like to start is that where do we create or have a center point, a database, a repository of all our clinical data for ourselves that we could learn about ourselves? Where is that being held? Do you know where it is? Where's our data? Where's our data that tells us that our hypertension, our diabetes, that is more than likely that if you are by 25 and you don't get treated. Is there any information? And I tell you what I like, there is Dr. Beatrice Weafe from Ghana. And I'm going to call her name because she's amazing. She's a breast cancer surgeon. And do you know, at the age of 14, there are Black children, women in Africa that have been detected with breast cancer? Do you know there's been recommendation that when you're 30 and 35 as a Black woman, you should already start having tests for breast cancer? And that has been ignored. I guess it's because of cost.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many 18 and 17-year-olds have developed tumors in their breasts? And because of our, again, some of us, because of our tribal background, religious background, all of that necromancy, that we ignore it and think someone did something to that child. That's why that child has that. So we also have some homework to do. But in saying that, the uniqueness of who we are as a people, that has not been shaping the infrastructure of health provisions. I mean, look at it basically. If you go into hospital today, your cultural food is not provided for as a patient. As you walk out the door, they say, excuse me, I want you to be on 120 calories. Do you know how much calories is in a plantain? Do you know how much calories is in a yam? Do you know how much calories in fufu? Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
That hasn't been, there's no data for that. So how do you want me to control my food intake, my dietary well-being, when I don't know how to count the calories for that?
Yeah, interesting.
I want to have a plate of peas and rice or some oxtail soup. How much calories is in that? But certainly I could tell you how much calories is in one grilled chicken. I could tell you how much calories is in a steak and kidney pie. If we don't do it, who will? And there is something that is fundamental here, is our reliance, our dependency on others to provide information for us in regards to our self-care and well-being. But I don't want to stray because it's a very heated topic for me.
Well, I could imagine.
There's a lot of new drug therapies, and there's a lot of historical stuff that happened that make us not willing to trust. However, as new drug therapies are being developed and new drugs are being developed, we are not part of that clinical trial, are we? How often do you see clinical trials announcing that they want Afro-Caribbean, people from Yoruba tribe, people from Igbo tribe, people from Rwanda? How often do you see that? And what's the cost and what's the value? What is the biggest Black cancer association there is in the world? Do you have a name?
I have no idea.
Right. What about prostate cancer that is killing our men all the time?
Yeah, prevalent.
But it is now becoming a topic for discussion because prostate cancer is now everybody's business, isn't it? But if you look at it historically, you could go back and search for data. It was deemed when the Black man goes in with a scrotum issues that it had something to do with sex, his sexual drive. And it was missed many of the times. When are we going to shift this focus from being neglected to being part of the table? Because we have scholars When you go to America, New York, you see our scholars walking around, whether in nursing, whether in labs, whether in research, whether clinicians themselves. So what is failing us? That is something for us to think about. Globalization, if you go, Nigeria has some amazing doctors, the Caribbean has amazing doctors, Ghana, Rwanda, Ethiopia, all the African continents, amazing in the medical and healthcare field. Therefore, why it is with healthcare tourism that our Black wealthy are going to other regions of the world and not traveling to Africa or going to Caribbean to get treated? Why? Why do we trust everybody else? So the whole construct, the whole breakthrough, the whole advancement has to fundamentally start from somewhere. Why are we still lacking trust in our own?
That's historical.
Exactly. So the only how we can actually change some of these health inequalities is for us to start having conversations and recognizing that we have to resource. We have to put in the resources to help our clinicians to feel psychologically safe in their work environment to support you. Because still in the work environment, our Black brothers and sisters don't want to. I've been to places where they wouldn't even talk to you too much because they don't want to look like they're being biased. Yeah. So we have to look at that, and we have to also demand from pharmaceutical companies that we become part of the conversation. We have to teach our grandparents and our mothers that when they go to the GP and they just prescribe antibiotics, whatever it is, and they take it to Boots or whatever, that they can actually say, who is the pharmaceutical company that's making this? Do you know if there's been a claim against them? How long they've been in operation? You can question that. Because I can tell you, I had to leave 3 pharmacies because they were giving me products that says ABC, but it was made by companies that in America, you see, they had major lawsuit for poor hygiene practices, but it's been sold here. What is the final thing I want to leave people to think about is what is our basic comorbidities that affect us every day? What are they? Diabetes, hypertension, leading to renal failure. Those are the things that asthma, if we live in poor environments. And are we getting the best care that we can? And we also have to encourage young women to attend their antenatal classes. They have to actually go back to maternal care. And we need to bring back the village. We need to bring back the village. So to wrap this up, I want to say that the future for all of us in health inequalities is building a legacy where we have dismantled health disparities, where we cannot remove the roots in slave era and plantation medicine and all of that. But what we have to do is invest in systems that could support our people. We have to look at what is under-resourced and what skills you have that you can share with others. We have to be able to speak up. and not be not be shy to speak up about when things don't work out the way that it should be. And we need to start building data, collecting data. Data is king, and our health data is important. And for those in the UK, start accessing your healthcare records on the portal and see if it's accurate. We must be able to reduce that gap in the treatment that we receive and talk up when we are treated badly as we entered into any health program, and speak up for our brothers and sisters who are in mental health care. So let's revolutionize healthcare systems across the world and demand that our future health is full of equitable and precision healthcare, precision medicine. And the only way we can do that is look at the 5 pillars that provide for us all the time. And that's how I'm going to end it. Pharmaceutical care. What is provided to you in acute care services? What is it provided for mental health and well-being? Workplace bullying, harassment, and being fearful to speak up when you see that the healthcare provisions of populations from the African and Caribbean community is not what it should be. It's not even in regards to policy. And the 5th is that let's go back to the village. Thank you.
Dr. Michael Holamach, thank you so much for that. It's really refreshing to hear someone from our community, speak confidently about the disparities and the inequalities that exist in the healthcare services. I've got a number of concerns in terms of how we as a people are being treated. But before I open the floor for questions, I just want to make reference to something that is quite important about our disposition as Black people as it relates to the health service, not only in the UK, but also in what used to be known as the first world, or the developed world today. And it's the fact that we don't have power. We don't have the wherewithal to be able to challenge the establishment, because they have, and historically speaking, they have the means to shut us down. They have the means to keep that veil over our eyes or over our faces so that we can't get the truth of where things are. How do you see us being in this position, or this position of being disadvantaged, to be able to shift the needle as it relates to getting more information from the powers that be, so to speak, that are controlling medicine and healthcare?
My mom always says something, that if you live in a house and there is rules and regulations in that house and it clashes with yours, you need to move out. And one of the great things in saying that, I know it sounds simple, one of the great things is for people like yourself and Michelle and all of us to say, well, look, what resources can we pull together to start in a simple advisory way, so that, and now with remote and online, to set up online portals so that people could ask questions from us, the people that they would trust, and saying, I'm going to run like a webinar like this, but I'm going to run a webinar only for men, because our Black men, only for men. It's confidential. You don't have to put on your camera. But let's have a conversation. What are some of the problems you are having in regards to your prostrate? Where did you go? Who did you see? Did you think you get good care? I've met Black men who've told me they've had a catheter in for almost a year, which is unheard of. It's not policy. Then why? And I had to call up the GP and say, what happened? I don't have to, drop my name, but hey, he's got a private life. What's happened? So I think let's break it up a little bit. I think the very first thing is, as I said, the village. The village has power. Let's go back to the village and creating a village that would address some of these issues in a constructive way, led by experts. So if it's prostate cancer, I want to see one of our brothers who are really skilled in that. Maternal health, I want to see people like Professor Rotimi and others, Jazz Leonce, all of those in there, and many others. If it's about clinical science, the raw data, all of that, the king himself, Dr. John Boladeku in there, to talk about pathology and chemistry and your biochemistry and all of that kind of stuff. And I think it's really important when you have your own gurus in there and giving people the freedom to speak. An open session with people like Misha, you know, where they don't have to give where they work, how they work, all that. They can, you know, but they can ask questions and come away enlightened. Come away enlightened. But I hate webinars that provide information, but they don't give them the next step.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or you come on, you listen, and there's no next step. So have an email that they could actually write and go, you know, I like when Michelle said, do you mind if I ask her some questions? I didn't want to ask her there because I didn't want to look like a fool. So can I get this follow-up? We need to go back to that. So that's the second thing. The next thing, we need to actually let the powers that be know that we know that this is not the right policy and practice. And under the freedom of information, we could request for that information. You know, how many people are dying or how many people are having amputations due to poor diabetes care? We can actually ask for that information to help build data. You see, once you start asking questions, the powers that be start to shape up their own organization because you're asking questions. We don't ask questions. If you don't believe me, get 10 elderly Black ladies over 80 and say, you know your GP, do you say to them, you don't want this medicine? Could they explain why they're giving you this? They'll say, no, he's so lovely to me. She loves me. I'm not saying the GP doesn't love her, but we don't. If they're home and they're getting poor care by carers who come to the house, they don't want to say anything because they don't want the carers to know they're upset. We reach to that stage. So again, for me, it's 3 parts: the village, getting the data, the evidence, to question and ask, why isn't this done according to your policies, procedures, and framework you set up for the benefit of people who look like me? That's the power of diversity and inclusion. I'm not one of those, I'll jump up today, yeah, Black one day and the rest of the days, forget it. Let's get, this is affecting our health. Do you know how many Black men die from prostate cancer? Where's the data? Who really have that? The numbers are so.
Yeah. Well, look, I know I can see people inching to get in to ask you questions, but there's one other burning thing before I open the floor. I'm not sure how many people know, but there's a phrase called Big Pharma. And Big Pharma are known to be the conglomerates that own pharmaceutical organizations, manufacturing firms, and what have you. And they control the price of medicine across vast swathes of land. And what people need to understand as well is that in order to sustain their businesses, they go around the world looking for very large areas of unused land, and they buy them up. They buy up this land, particularly in places like the Amazon, where they have access to certain types of plants that are rare. And they take out arrangements with the governments that have access or ownership of those lands, for 20, 25 years.
Mhm.
So in terms of sustainability, they know for the next generation of leaders within that organization, they can exact profits on an unlimited basis. How can we little Black folks, you know, in London or in Canada or wherever, make a difference to that? Make our leaders be more responsible in how it is they grant these licenses for longer than their kids might even survive. How do we combat that?
There's a revolution into I'm careful about the word, but there's a revolution that's going on in regards to our great-grandparents and historical herbs. And it's a shame that that hasn't been passed down to us. I remember as a child growing up in Trinidad, and I've got a cold, and my grandma would go out somewhere and grab up some leaves and boil it in a pot and drink, and I drink it and I'm good to go. But now if I go, I grab some leaves, I don't know, I mean, I may be rolling out stiff because I don't know which is which. You see, we don't, again, this is legacy building. Yeah. It's all right to say that, but that country need the money, the income to sustain the population.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is that they don't know the value of what's there. They don't have the big scientists to come in and test each flower and go, okay, this is good for heart, this is good for this. I mean, soursop has broken the boundaries. They can't control soursop. And soursop, you know, is being used for cancer, all sorts of stuff, but they can't control that. And I think there is this advancement, and we taken back some of our natural herbs, the ones that we know, and be very careful with it, because remember, with natural herbs, at least you don't know the dosage. So I don't know how much in one leaf of soursop, how much it is. Do I supposed to take 1 spoon, a teaspoon, you know? So, you know, we don't know because we haven't given that knowledge, but we need to actually invest in labs. We have billionaires who are Black, multimillionaires who are Black, and they need healthcare too. So before yes, we could do all of that, go with a flag and wave, but we really need to come together with all these celebrities and all of that and set up some labs so that we could see what we have. What do we have? What kind of data we have? We need to actually invest in some of our great clinicians who are doing academic and research all the time, and they put out their research and they really need you to help them, and nobody does. We need to invest in them so that they can help us. Let's do it from a real academic standpoint. And I think that's the first thing, no guesswork. And I think waving the flag is good, but again, you remember I said village, evidence, break down policies and protocol. And again, it's the same thing. That is, to me, is a massive pipe, and that will flow through. We need to get into that pipe.
Okay, right.
If I may jump in,
Yes.
I have been, and David knows me well, chomping at the bit to jump in. Everything that you said has resonated. Every single thing that you just mentioned has resonated. And for me, the fact that you were saying village, that's what I started with this morning. That's what I'm talking about. And that whole idea of village starts with us trusting each other, with that we all have within the African and Caribbean spaces unhealed trauma. And when we have that, and we start from that healing point, the village becomes indestructible. Indestructible. We can then do all of the flag waving at that point.
And that's why I said the village, you know, Michelle, and I'm glad you got it. We have to go back to village. We have to go back to village. We have to go back to the time when, you know, a Black man walking down the street and see another Black man, and he said, hello, how are you? We need to go back. We need to go back to the village. We need to go back and build kinship.
Yes.
So that it becomes safe. We need to, we are good reporters. We are very good at reporting. We report an issue, we report this, we report that. We'll even report you and I. We're very good reporters. What I want to see is to flip that reporting thing and become action change makers. So when you're reporting the change and the action that you put in and the change.
100%.
Yep. I think.
Oh, Professor Rotimi is here. Professor Rotimi, I've been calling your name, and I didn't realize you were here. I said about expert. I think it would be great. This is Professor Rotimi Jaisimi, and I would tell you who he is. Some people would know who he is. In regards to sepsis, that's a classic. I'll let him talk about it. Many times as a Black person, you turn up to an A&E or wherever, and you're sick in hospital and you have sepsis. It's either you have HIV or you have something. This is the person who identified that we do get sepsis as well.
Okay.
Professor Rotimi, are you fit for camera? I would love for you to jump in and meet these wonderful people. My brother. Guru of all, law, everything. This is the man.
Okay, welcome, Professor. I'm not sure how much you've gathered since we've
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, I gathered a lot. It's nice to be here. Nice to see each and every one of you. And thank you, Michaelene, for a wonderful presentation. I was going to raise my hand, and Michelle has mentioned the word village. I was thinking that we need to build a strong village.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the concept of village, people will think, oh, it's small, it's not relevant. But that's the foundation of society. And we as a group, Afro-Caribbeans, have to come together to build a big village so that we have that critical voice. I mean, this is a very useful meeting. And I was looking at the number of attendees. We are 10 on the line. There should be hundreds of us here.
Mm-hmm.
And like people say, if you want to hide something from a Black man or woman, what do they say? Give them books or
put it in a book.
Or put it in the books, yeah.
Put it in a book, or there's a second part now with remote. It is, if it's not titillating,
yeah,
and twerking, then it's not excitable.
Yeah.
And how sad is that?
Yeah. So we need to encourage ourselves to attend. I just came across this morning and just said, no, I must be on this platform, at least listening in, making myself wiser. And so thank you, African Caribbean Sustainability and Investment Summit, for putting this together. Again, I always talk about quality over quantity. The fact that there are 10 people here today doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It could be just one of us who runs away with the idea Michaelene has shared with us. And you never know the ripple effect of what that one person will do. So we will not despair. We will not be despondent on numbers. It's the quality that matters. So please keep going. Let's keep going. And thank you.
Professor Rotimi, before you go, I know it's Robert's show, but before you go, because you're in IT, I would all of us who are here, we have a lot of IT experts in Africa and the Caribbean. What I dream, and it's just a dream, but I dream that we would come together and create the most powerful digital health platform ever seen. where we're going to embrace mobile technology and AI for education, for monitoring of our illnesses, for managing our illnesses, and most importantly, for referring our own to our own. That is, you know, when Martin Luther King say, I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream that all these great IT gurus that we have from our continent and region will come together with great health experts and design the most powerful platform that in the end Google or Apple or Microsoft will go, wow, look how many millions of Black people are on this, getting advice, seeking help, asking questions. You know, I got this tablet from my doctor. What is it? Is it good? And paying a nominal fee so that it could sustain itself. Yeah, so that it sustain itself.
Thank you.
That is my hope. And thank you for having me so much. African Caribbean Sustainability and Investment Summit. Thank you.
The pleasure is all ours, you know, and I'm very happy that we were able to benefit from your vast knowledge in the field. And I'm ecstatic that we had Professor Rotini find time to be with us and, you know, to give us these inspiring words that, you know, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. And we'll get there. You know, we are young, we are only 8 months old, and this platform has only been going for 2.5 months. So we're building, you know. Thank you. We're
Well,
building.
you must join us because we have BAME Health Collaborative and we do a lot of webinars in regards to specific healthcare issues. I'm the founder of BAME Health Collaborative, and Professor Rotimi is a chairman there. And so it's good for us as well to collaborate. That's another thing we need to learn, to collaborate, and we need to support and we need to promote each other. So I need to promote Michelle. I need to promote you. I need to promote Professor Rotimi, because if we don't do that, then who do we expect to do it?
That's absolutely right.
That's
absolutely
our village right there.
Yeah, that's where the village starts. That's where the village starts. So one takeaway from this meeting just now is that today, the action today is that we will start the village and do the best that we can with our respective networks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So the floor is now open. Anyone can ask a question of Michelle or even Professor Rotini, you know, who has just joined us. Just make yourselves known and then ask a question.
I do have a question myself, and this is for Dr. Michaelene. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. There has been conversation around the, I guess the markers when you look at things like, you know, diabetes and hypertension, etc. And you mentioned something that stuck out for me is that asking of your healthcare provider and you're rightfully you mentioned, you give some example of, you know, some 80-year-old and they wouldn't ask and they would just believe that, you know, the healthcare provider really loves them, and it's true. I mean, they go there and they see someone who says 2 kind words and you believe that is love. How do you think we should now go about talking to our elderly people, because, you know, they're already kind of like it's within them. It's part of who they are. Well, how do we get them to kind of see around that in order to understand that it's not just accepting what's given to them, but being able to just say, you know what, nicely. How do we equip them to ask nicely? That's what I'm trying to say. You know, because we could say, you have to ask, but people will get into those rooms and will not ask.
Okay,
because they're not equipped to.
Great question. As African Caribbean, where do we spend most of our time? We go to work, family, and where do we spend our Sundays and
Church.
any other day? In the church. Yeah. If you do a survey, or if you just try to look, if you go to New York, Brooklyn, there's about 100 churches every corner. Pastors galore. Same thing for Africa. Same thing for the Caribbean. Same thing for here. I just can rent my room out. I'll get a community of people. And so therefore, we have to move from place of comfort to place where we think is uncomfortable to have those conversations. You know, I met a wonderful guy. He was a prisoner. Now he's doing some great work in regards to that prisoners can have emails so that they can know what's going on with their family. And I think it's a fantastic innovation. Prisoners is a revolving door for us, for our people. Going in, coming out, going in, coming out. It's like a holiday camp. We have to move from comfort zone. We need to get in contact with the prison authority and the prison and say, hey, can I come and do a session? Because even for prison health, there's inequalities. As a matter of fact, I'm building a risk assessment form for my Black prisoners and all prisoners to be able to identify when they're not well, rather than waiting for them to die in prison without any care, without it being critical. Because when a person of Caucasian descent getting blue, you could see it in a minute. My brother and sister, it take a long time. By the time you know you're blue, you're on life support and you're dead, So I think fundamentally it comes back to the village. Where are our villages? Where are our villages?
Yes, you're quite right. You know what? It is in the church.
The church. Where is our villages? That's where our villages are, and places where we eat.
Yes.
McDonald's, I'm calling them out. Those are the places where we congregate. So we need to have road champions.
Leaders.
Road champions. If we're going to talk to 14-year-old, we got to have 18, 19, 21-year-old road champions. We need to train road healthcare champions to be part of that. And that's where Caribbean Global Institute is doing. We just took care of a lovely young man. And that's what we believe in. Coming back to the village. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
The question is for anybody really. It's about trust within the village, trust within ourselves. That's number one. And then number two, not burying our head in the sand when things are going wrong. You don't want your next door neighbor to know that something is happening to you. We should be open to one another. You find somebody you can confide in, who is trustworthy, who you can share things with, medical, economical, financial. How do I grow? It is said in my language, if you ask for the way to London, you'll not miss the road. If you don't ask for the way, you'll just keep going around the M25 maybe forever. So ask for the way and you won't miss the road. So again, within our community, we have to build our trust. And again, it's not who's the brightest star. No, let us all be our star. Not just one star, that's soul star. That's one thing in our community where you want to be the only one that is seen, the top man, the top woman. No, there's enough space for each and every one of us to excel and to shine, even when the glass ceiling is there. And we'll continue to strive to break that glass ceiling. So I think that's if maybe comments on it. It's not a question, just comments that I've put forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll just say something really quickly about the issue of trust within our community. One of the challenges that we have at the African Caribbean Sustainability and Investment Summit is bridging that divide between the African approach to Caribbeans and the Caribbean approach to Africans in terms of the historical sort of perception that exists on both sides of the Atlantic. I grew up for most of my life in the Caribbean, having lived in Grenada, Guyana, St. Lucia, and places of that type. And they all have, surprising enough, a very similar perception of Africans. I think what it is that they have learned over the years from their forebears is that Africans are very difficult to speak to because of the language barrier, and their cultural bits that the Africans don't share openly. So as a result, the Caribbeans tend to retract. They tend to sit back and just watch. Whereas on the other side, I've been told in my journalism work that Africans don't trust Caribbeans because, and this might make some of you laugh, 400 years ago, they didn't put up sufficient fight to resist the efforts in slavery. So
I think,
So-
yeah.
So on that basis, we have that historical legacy where each side is holding on to something that is, in my view, immaterial today. It doesn't matter today because we're in a different era. How do we get them to rest those feelings, those perceptions, and embrace a new way or a new path to working together?
Can I answer that? I mean, Professor Rotimi and I, we have leaders in health and tech in Africa, and we always there, and I am there, and I am always treated very well. I think fundamentally we have to say before we even get there is that the media has shown Africa to be a place of abstract poverty. Tarzan swinging from a tree, kids, Biafra. They don't go to places like Canoe where people have 24-karat gold taps in the house. No, they don't do that. They don't go to parts of Lagos where somebody have a small plane at the back of the yard, the back of the garden. No, they don't do that. They don't go to places in Ghana where you go and you need a golf cart to get from the north side of the house to the south side of the house. Yeah. And Professor Rotimi would tell you, I go Makola Market in Ghana where all the women selling, and I'm in the heart of it. I think and I go there with my slippers, don't care if the dirt fall on me. I'm having a great time. I eat food, I have a good time. I'm very greedy. When I get Africa, I'm very greedy. I don't care, I eat. So I think we have to look at what media sold us that we bought. We didn't even buy it, we wear it. And my mom told me that in the early days when her African brothers and sisters were coming here, we treated them just as how the others were treating. The racism went both ways. So before we get on, and I could tell you, anyone who's still talking that is still caught in the ignorance zone, because we're passing that now. Yeah. But we have to recognize who sells the storyline. When you sit at home and you're looking at your television, when it's crime, when it is social issues, who do you see pop up on TV? Do you see somebody looking like yourself or me or Michelle to talk about the NASDAQ? Do you see us? Again, we don't control the media. But what we do control is the fact that we are coming as a village. And as we start to share our food, respect traditions, ask questions. Girl, you wearing that pretty dress. What is it for? Is it for a funeral? Is it for a wedding? Because you don't know from the Caribbean what that cloth look like. You might come up to someone and you're wearing that beautiful black and white dress. And a Ghanaian might think you just come from a funeral. But you might be twerking in it, so it looks inappropriate. The reality is we have to relearn and unlearn. If you are not going to go to your motherland and unlearn and relearn, then you need to stay where you are and embrace the culture that you have grown to appreciate and believe that nothing else matters. But if you want to be part of the village, you got to. I'm Trinidadian, Trinidad and Tobago. No. So when I go to Jamaica, I have to unlearn and relearn too. Some of the words that you would say, I was like, what's that? Unlearn and relearn. We have to do that. The tribes in Africa, same thing. Ghana versus Nigeria is the same. That's us. We are a people of that. But once we get focused in the village, that coconut tree is ours. All of us use coconut, all of us drink coconut, all of us smell coconut. Yes, we all eat plantain, we plantain children. I look like a plantain, I walk like a plantain. Once we start getting down to the basics of who we are. Rice, you like rice in Jamaica? Ask Rotimi, he loves rice. Jollof rice, pela rice, jerk rice, rice. We rice people. But we need to ask where we're getting our rice from. Are we eating plastic rice or are we eating proper rice? We have to start changing the language. How many of our Black people want to learn French, Italian, all of that, Russian? Do we want to learn a little Tree, a little Yoruba? How much French? I have Yoruba friends. You do? Tell me one word in Yoruba. Oh, yeah, Igbo friends. Tell me one word in Chineke. Everybody know Chineke mean God. Yeah, I call my cat now, you know Chineke. Tell me, how are you? Ask me, how are you? So this prophecy, this gold, invisible crown that we want to wear, you know that crown? We got friends from Africa, but we don't really eat their food and we don't really know what they speak or how they, you see that? That crown has no value. And the beautiful thing about Trump, I hope he hears me, is that it makes us wake up that we need to create our own calabash.
Absolutely. 100%.
And I have to leave you because I'm going on a major meeting, but I'm telling you now, thank you, Mr. Trump, because it gives us a wake-up call. No longer we shall be coming with a calabash, hands like this. We will start having to think in here how to create hands for ourselves. And we must stop others from talking nonsense about each other. We must stop it, whether our brothers and sisters in Haiti, whether they have tribal priests, witch priests, whatever, that's their culture, respect it. The whites have their white witches and dancing around trees, we don't criticize it. Let's do a little love so that the village will survive. Thank you all. I sound so radical at Professor Ruti meeting, they'll employ me anymore.
Oh, you sound just right, and it really is about all of those unhealed traumas that that been foisted on us from whether it's religion, everything. So you're right. I myself have said thanks to Trump. Now we just got to take it and run with it and not look back, right? We've got to make it work for ourselves, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. He has unwittingly given the global South power. Whether he unwittingly done it, so he doesn't know. He's not aware, and he doesn't care. Even if he were told, he wouldn't care.
He wouldn't care. He wouldn't care. But it's good. And I must say, power to Afrexi Bank, power to the African Development Bank, power to them for Ethiopia Airlines. Let's give them their prop.
Yep.
There's quite a few big firms, the Dangote, Macaulay, all of these big shipping magnates from Africa, who's just going over to the region, very calm, and telling us, you could come home.
Mm-hmm.
You could come home and you could invest. You could come home, give it a try. Come home.
Yeah. Exodus comes to mind, Exodus, So on that note, Michaelene, thank you so much for
Michaelene?
Yes, yes, Michaelene. So thank you so much for those inspiring words. We are encouraged going forward here at ACSIS. And I'm not sure if anyone has any questions, but I know you say you have to run. So we look forward to taking this conversation to the village. One of the main outcomes or takeaways from today is that we need to be looking inwards. We need to be working with each other. We need to appreciate each other's strengths and attributes. So I thank you for imparting those really valuable thoughts with us. And you can rest assured we will take them to heart.
Thank you. That's great. That's good to hear. And those who are coming to the Caribbean Global Awards, I look forward to seeing you.
Yes, you'll see me there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So, Michelle, is there anything you want to say as a result of what we heard from Michaelene?
I think, you know what, I think she's covered it all. One of the things with my last slide that I didn't go through, if you want to just pop it up there, I think that kind of captures all of what we're talking about, even though Michaelene was going at it from, the more health side. And I mean, mine was from the health side as well. It's just more on the emotional health. And it all ties in. That was the scary part of it, because we had no previous conversation, and but yet there was such synergy within what we were talking about. And in both aspects, we're coming right back to, hey, the village, and how do we? If you can, I can quickly share it here. I think, David.
Yeah.
So let me see. I believe this is the one. And
back up.
If you can see my screen, you will see that last bit there. That's what is this. Are you seeing my screen?
I am, yes.
Good. So it's that last bit that I think captures on both sides of the fence, and I want to kind of just leave that, and then that's it. We're destined to rise together, the African and the Caribbean. So all of the things that we talked about the suspicion of each other, about the mistrust, etc. Trump, like you said, unwittingly has made it such that we are destined to rise together. Bullet point number one. Number two, but to rise higher and stronger, we must ensure that our partnerships are not just about finances. It's got to be about our healing journeys. It's got to be about those unhealed traumas, because every single thing that Michaelene talked about in terms of, whether people are afraid or hesitant, let's not say afraid, to tell their doctors, this might not be the right thing for me, whether it's, looking at our Haitian sisters, having their religious ceremonies, but we are being made to condemn it and criticize it as something evil, when it's actually how they express their spirituality, right? All of that are things that we have to unpack. unpack, all of those are things that form part of our unhealed trauma. And all of those things leads into the final bullet point, because when we heal, we build. And when we build together, we cannot be broken. And I think that is really the crux. And I think that's what Michaelene was also saying when she referenced that whole idea of the village. When we are together, we're stronger. When we build together, we're more resilient. And we are difficult to conquer. Just look at the other side. Just look at non-Blacks and understand why it is that they're stronger and why we end up at the bottom of the proverbial totem pole. Because our village is not solid. That's it.
Thank you, Michelle. That really, puts everything into perspective, and it's great that Frexim Bank have seen the value in our work in terms of how we are working to create this notion of a village, so that we can get African and Caribbean entrepreneurs working together sustainably to reduce waste. It's important that we think along a unified path of development, so that we can help each other, so that we can make a difference to our communities. It's all about community empowerment, and what you and Michaelene have said today supports the idea that what we're doing really is valuable and needed. So I want to reflect on the fact that we've had a good session today. We had some very insightful comments from Michaelene and yourself about how it's important that we can reflect as a people on our history and use that to forge relationships going forward. That is very inspiring. I'd like to wrap up now with a few closing words. So first of all, I need to thank Professor Rotimi for gracing us with his presence, surprisingly, and I'm quite sure that this won't be his last presence with us. We also have Temani Joseph, who is quite quiet in the background, and I'm hoping that this is one of several appearances that she will make with us. And yes, we've got our ambassador, Neil Adonis from Grenada with us, and others. So thank you for listening in on the conversation and inspiring us to continue this work that we're doing to help our community. In terms of the announcements, the ACSIS World Reparations Conference is slated for Thursday, the 25th of September, which is another, 5 weeks away. We're all set to have that discussion at the House of Lords. We have a number of very high-profile speakers who will be looking at reparations, reparative justice, and how it's impacting the lives of people within the African Caribbean diaspora space. Following that, we know we have our landmark event. So we launched, for those of you who are not aware, we launched the African Caribbean Sustainability and Investment Summit last November at the House of Lords. And now we're preparing to deliver the first edition of it in terms of providing reports on our achievements and the things that we have done and are continuing to do with our new partners, whether they be institutional or strategic partners. So this will take place on the 21st and 22nd of November at Queen's Gatehouse, London, just around the corner from the Jamaican High Commission and the Natural Science Museum. And I'm happy to tell you that the next webinar is scheduled for Thursday, the 4th of September. And we will be looking at the topic of reparations, reparative justice. So those of you who want an insight into what we are going to be focusing on at the House of Lords on the 25th, you can attend this webinar on the 4th of September, and we'll give you some ideas as to how we intend to deliver, what topics we'll be looking at, and who the presenters will be. It's going to be an extraordinary lineup, and if you're available, we invite you to attend. So once again, I thank you for your patience and your support, and spread the word. Let people know, as Professor Rotini said, we're in a place where we can grow. So we need to let our networks be aware of what we're doing. Every 2 weeks, we cover a different topic, and the topic is of interest to both African and Caribbean people, whether it be fintech, financial inclusion, creative industries, cultural support, development and resilience, whatever it is, these are the areas that we'll be covering. So stay tuned, and thank you once again, and goodbye.
Goodbye.